Hello and welcome to Lamplighter. Today is May 25. Today we finally come to the end of the study of the Proverbs that we've been working our way through for several days now. We conclude the Proverbs with a section of Proverbs that are still kind of in a miscellaneous type category, and we begin with just various observations by the wise man. And we begin with a section entitled Joy and Grief. What the authors are doing here is putting these two ideas together. Sometimes we feel expressions of joy, sometimes we experience expressions of grief, and sometimes the two are kind of intermingled where they're very difficult to differentiate. Notice this, for example, even in laughter, the heart may ache and joy may end in grief. Sometimes, even though a person may be laughing on the outside, there may be great pain on the inside. You know that to be true because I'm sure you've experienced that yourself from time to time, as we all have. Or we read, a cheerful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones. How important it is to have a cheerful heart and to learn to experience joy, not just happiness based on the circumstances of our life, but joy that comes from somewhere deep inside, so that even when we're hurting and even when we're going through times of crisis, we can find that real and true and lasting joy that is supplied by God Himself. And that joy works to heal us through our times of hurt and misery. An evil man is snared by his own sin, but a righteous one can sing and be glad. I think it's so important for Christian people, those who are striving to live a life that pleases God, to be people who are glad, people who are enjoying life, people who are able to sing praises regularly to God and put that joy in the heart through song. We have some proverbs under the category of good news. And we read this, a cheerful look brings joy to the heart, and good news gives health to the bones. Who doesn't want to hear good news, especially in the world in which we live? You turn on the television or you read a newspaper and all you hear seems to be bad news, all the crisis and all the tragedy in the world. Don't you long for some good news? And isn't it amazing that the Word of God is referred to as good news? God's plan of salvation is good news. Those are things that delight the heart. That's why we can joyfully say as we read through the Bible together, His Word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my way. He is lighting the path for me to find joy, to find the meaning of life so that there is some purpose along the way. There's a single proverb here actually on curiosity. And we read there an idea that the eyes of men are never satisfied. There's always this longing for something more, or to find out more, or to have more information, or to ask more questions. It's this curiosity that sometimes builds within us, in some more than in others. It reminds me of the old expression, curiosity killed the cat, to which some old sarcastic wag responds, yes, but satisfaction brought him back. We always long to know more, or we always long to have more, when really what we ought to be longing for is to find satisfaction and contentment in our lives. Then we read some sayings of someone by the name of Agur. He declares himself in his writings to be ignorant and lacking of understanding of God. And he starts to question the amazement and the awesomeness of God. And his questions are very similar to God's questionings of Job that we'll read later, because there are just some amazing things that questions asked that really have no answers, because God is so, in many ways, incomprehensible to us. After he discusses God's nature and tries to wrestle with God's character, then he says some pretty amazing things as well. A pretty lengthy reading here of his proverbs or wise words. He says, every word of God is flawless. He is a shield to those who take refuge in him. But I particularly love this part. This is just great wisdom and a great prayer by the way, that each of us could pray. Keep falsehood and lies from me. Give me neither poverty nor riches, but give me only my daily bread. Otherwise, I may have too much and disown you and say, "Who is the Lord?" Or I may become poor and steal and so dishonor the name of my God. He says, don't give me too much or give me too little, but help me to just live a balanced, moderate life so that I can focus all of my attention on the goodness of God. It's a great prayer. It's a great sentiment. Then we read the sayings of King Lemuel. And really, these are written as like words from a mother, a wise mother giving her son advice. And he has some great things to say, or maybe I should say she has some great words of advice for her son, the king, when she says, "Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and needy." It's as though a mother is giving her son, the king, some advice, some tips, some wisdom on how to rule wisely. And then as the Proverbs close, they close with this great poem called The Wife of Noble Character. You've probably read it many times before. You've probably heard it many times before because it stands alone as a great piece of poetry. And what's interesting, if you look at the footnote here, you see that this poem is an acrostic, that each line of it begins with a successive letter in the Hebrew alphabet, which is pretty amazing when you think about this. So with this poem, we reach the end of the Proverbs, and this poem is describing this wife of noble character. But I want us, as we think about that, to take a great big step back. And don't limit it to a wife, or don't limit it to a woman, but this is really a description that could be fitting and could be adapted to all of us who strive to develop noble character. Now, there are some great excerpts here with which you may already be familiar. A wife of noble character, who can find? She is worth far more than rubies. So character itself that is noble is worth more than money can buy. Then you read this near the end of the proverb: charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. As we generalize that statement, which is so powerful, we can start to see that those external things on which we spend so much time focusing, the physical things, the material things of life, those really aren't important, and those aren't even lasting. What matters is the heart. What matters is a person of character who fears the Lord, who honors the Lord with his or her life, and knows that the Lord is always to be lifted high, to be exalted, and to be praised. Isn't it great to be a lamplighter? His word is a lamp to our feet and a light to our path. I hope you have a blessed day.